Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Monday, the 19th of February. Continuing to read through Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, today we read chapter 6, which begins with a challenge to the Corinthian church. Paul says, "If any of you has a dispute with another, do you dare to take it before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people?" And it seems that the partisan spirit within the Corinthian church, where groups were saying, "I follow Paul," or "I follow Peter," "I follow Apollos," led to a disputatious spirit within the church. And there were disputes between individuals which ended up in court. Now, we need to recognize that the church today is very different from what it was in Paul's day. Today, the church is a social organization with rules, and we're bound by the laws of the land, and we have legal contracts, buying property, maintaining property, contracts with people to do work for us, contracts with people working within the church, and all of those are legal documents. And when there's a problem between an individual and the body, that the structure, the social organization of the church, that very often does end up in court, and that's the proper place for it to go. And we've seen clergy being dismissed, and they appealed to the CCMA to be reinstated. And not ideal, but that makes sense. Whereas what Paul's writing about is people within a body of believers. The church wasn't a social structure. It didn't have rules and laws and contracts and all those kind of things back in those days. But what it was people disagreeing within the body and then going to court. And a couple of verses later, he says to the people, "I say this to shame you. Is it possible that there is nobody among you wise enough to judge a dispute between believers? But instead, one brother takes another to court, and this in front of unbelievers." He says, surely there's people within the body that can settle these things. Find an independent, autonomous third party, and let them bring their wisdom to the dispute and solve it within the church. You don't need to go outside. And it made me think that we need to recognize that there is great wisdom within the body. And there's so many things where we're unsure, or where there are divisions, or where somebody says something and we wrestle with it, that we can appeal to the wisdom within the body of believers, because there are people wise enough to judge disputes. There are people within the body wise enough to give guidance. There are people within the body wise enough to unravel the tangled relationships that we so often have, and to give wisdom and speak spiritual wisdom into those kind of problems. So we just need to remember that as Christians, legal recourse is the last resort, and we need to look within the body where there is wisdom and find solutions internally when there are problems and disagreements and disputes and issues, as there so often are, simply because the church is full of people, and that's the way people are. But people are also wise to counsel, to guide, to judge and decide. So be challenged to be wise and to search that wisdom out where necessary. Be blessed.